Listeners, today I want to start with a confession. Most founders I talk to say the same thing when they hear data privacy and compliance. Their shoulders tense up. They picture, all these long audits, legal jargon, random spreadsheets, and money burning in the background. But at the same time, those same founders want something huge: enterprise customers, trust, bigger deals, board confidence. They want to scale without waking up to a security incident on a random Tuesday. So, listeners, welcome back to the BizBlend podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sana, and somewhere in between those realities, which I just told you, there's this quiet question that we are going to address in today's conversation. How do I take data privacy seriously without killing our speed as a startup? So, today we are not going doom, we are not doing fear. We are talking about privacy and compliance as a strategic lever, as something that can actually help you close deals and move pipeline. And my guest is perfect for that conversation. We have with us Shayne Adler, CEO of AETOS Data Consulting. She helps teams turn strategic compliance into a sales advantage. She translates heavy frameworks like the SOC to ISO 27001. Okay, Shane, I'm not very much familiar with all of them, but yeah. And I AI risk management framework into simple playbooks that real teams can actually ship against. And what I love about Shane's work, listeners, is that it's very operator coded. At least that I can say. She lives in the world of what evidence do buyers really ask for. Where do startups waste time on low ROI tasks? And how do you stand up lightweight but defensible controls that sales, legal, and engineering can all live with? So, if you're a founder, a product leader, security person, or anyone who has have ever thought this question that we should probably do something about compliance, but I don't know how to figure that out, this one's for you. Shane, welcome to the BizBlend podcast, and I'm really, really honored that you're here today with
Thank
us.
you so much. I appreciate the comprehensive intro, and I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Shane, I mean, this is a very important topic, but I think there's a certain amount of fear and you know I've recently come across this FOFO, fear of finding out,
Mhm.
uh, being attached, when it comes to data privacy or compliance, anything that is, legal, for the fact accounting as well. And recently we have seen a lot of data outages, a lot of security, incidents happening at a global level. Even the biggest companies, the enterprises are also prone to such kind of incidents. So let's start at the ground level. When you look at early stage startups, let's say in the first 12 to 18 months window, what do you think they consistently get wrong about data privacy and security?
I think considering compliance a tomorrow problem is the biggest issue for most early stage startups. They think that they're not big enough to be a target for regulators, which is honestly true, but they don't see the full picture that for B2C companies, investors are going to want to see data privacy and AI governance taken seriously if they're going to invest. And, if a B2B company wants to sell to a larger company, they're going to be extremely protective of their vendor stack, and they're not going to want to buy from a company that doesn't have a compliance program in place. So those are the two audiences that get missed in those early conversations.
Hmm. And Shane, if a founder is listening right now and thinking that, okay, that is probably us, what is the first concrete step you want them to take, maybe right now, this week, not even next year?
I like to put out little 5-minute checks that people can do even same day if they see one of my posts and it can help on LinkedIn, for example. I will share something like reviewing your privacy policy on your website. Number one, is it there? Uh, Checking that you have disclosures that are all those public facing disclosures in place and that they're easily accessible and that they're not just a template that you copy and pasted. Uh, that's one of those things I call low hanging fruit. It's easy to do. It's easy to tell if it's, in jargon or really hard to understand versus something that is easily read by a layperson. It's also one of those signs of maturity. You have to have those things in place in order to do business. It's just table stakes.
Exactly. And this is something I can connect with, because working in the sales and business development front, especially in the IT services or IT sector, I kind of now think about, how I kind of also um maybe unconsciously kind of ignored those courses or training on data privacy and security, because it's not only just the external bad actors or agents, but there are several internal incidents as well. And sometimes it can be very difficult to kind of go through the jargons. For example, in the intro, I really really kind of said mistakenly SOC. Actually, it's called SOC 1 and SOC 2 type 2 type 1. I'm not sure, but yeah, I think even a layperson can understand. I think in that way, definitely, it needs to be kind of, made aware about.
And honestly, you pinpointed one of the biggest issues. Uh, it's that humans tend to be the biggest security gap, not the technology. You can
Mm.
have amazing cybersecurity policies in place, but if you are saying you do all these amazing things, but not actually doing them, we like to talk about saying what you do and doing what you say. That
Mhm.
delta between what a company says they're doing and what is happening on a day-to-day basis with the people who may have gone through the training but not fully paid attention or, let a step or two slip, that tends to be what is causing the biggest issues that ripple out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you talk about, and this is very interesting because I haven't come across this aspect, especially around compliance. You talk about it as that, something that closes deals. Now, a lot of founders, they still treat SOC type 2 and similar frameworks as this expensive badge that, they get under pressure. In your experience, when does compliance actually move the pipeline, and when it is just, like a nice logo on a slide or your website?
I think particularly for B2B companies, I've used this term already, it's become table stakes. If a B2B startup was to sell to a larger enterprise, they will almost always require that one of those badges is in place. Typically, they'll want SOC 2 Type 2, which is the audit over a period of time versus a snapshot in time, which is SOC 2 Type 1. Um,
Okay.
and they will use that as a heuristic or a shorthand for what your practices must be in order to have earned the badge.
Mm.
They assume that you're still doing all of the things that the badge says you were doing during the observation, during the audit. For, uh, for a B2C company, backing up just a step, SOC 2 tends to be a very US based one. If a B2B company wants to do business internationally, ISO 27001 would be the the parallel option
Mm.
to choose. And sometimes both may be required. Then turning to how that relates to sales. I mean, I think that connection for B2B companies, it's obvious. You are going to lose time on all of those questionnaires. You may even not get a second look from a potential client or customer if you don't have that at least in process, because there are other solutions out there who have those trust signals, I like to call them, They don't necessarily mean a company is 100% trustworthy, but it gives an idea of where you're prioritizing. On the B2C side, it really comes down to what I referred to earlier. It's more on the funding because we tend not to see consumers be as aware of or concerned with these badges. However, with B2C companies, because regulators will tend to look at them with more scrutiny,
Exactly.
investors are going to also do the same because they want to make sure they are investing in a company that isn't going to just be completely devalued. And we have seen that happen as a result of not having data privacy uh, compliance policies in place.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is something, huge, especially for B2C. I think it busts a lot of misconception around it, because I think it shifts the mental model from this is a tax to this is actually a sales asset.
It it absolutely is because as a company is going to scale and wants to get that positive attention, wants to be able to have those practices in at the ground floor, we
Mm-hmm.
call it compliance debt. The further along you get before you implement compliance, it's as similar to tech debt. It's more costly, more disruptive, more complex to reverse engineer it. And sometimes you can't turn the clock back on it. Um, One situation we did see was it was a B2B company, but this exact thing happened in a B2C company as well that I'll refer to in a minute. The company was going through a liquidity event. They were going to be acquired. We were on the acquiring side in the transaction. And when diligence was done, it came out that they had not built their programming, their algorithm on
Mhm.
data that was handled compliantly. Initially, their valuation was low eight figures, so not a huge deal in the scheme of M&A, but for these founders, two founders, nice people, it was 6 years of their life. And when that was uncovered, it's like if you're selling a house and the inspector discovers mold in the basement, you can't then just go find another buyer for that same house without disclosing the mold. It would be fraud. So you have to disclose going forward that this issue came up in diligence. The sale price dropped from that low eight figures to mid six figures. And it was 96% drop in valuation. Basically, these poor guys, like they were not bad people. They just didn't know what they didn't know. And they had to sell for the value of the debt the company had functionally. And the same thing happened. So the reason that happened, I'm sorry, I should explain, is something called algorithmic disgorgement, which is a mouthful. But it means that if data is not handled in a compliant manner, you have to delete everything that flowed from that was derived from that was built on that data. So they had to
Mm.
delete everything. The same thing happened when Amazon acquired Ring a few years ago, like the Ring security cameras. That was a B2C product, and Ring had been using data that it didn't have the right to for that purpose when they built their algorithm. And so it ended up being a very expensive mistake on Amazon's part.
Mm. Yeah, that's actually a good example. Very good example. Um, and I think uh, you know, for founders and even for the GTM folks, I think um, it's 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 very safe to say that if your security work never shows up in your sales story or your trust center, you are leaving money on the table.
Mhm. I
Mm.
absolutely think that's accurate because when you were mentioning in the intro about all of these issues that have come up recently, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time the company that's in the headlines isn't necessarily the one that had the actual security breach or incident or whatever we want to call it. It's typically somewhere in the vendor stack. And so if you want to market your product, your business, your services to get that extra value, that peace of mind that you can give your client that may be using your whatever it is, that is a value add for them because they won't have to worry as much that you're going to be a PR liability.
Exactly. It's always better to, be proactive rather than be reactive.
100%. And to and it's tedious, but keep it up. Like, not just doing these things during an audit period, but keeping them up in those, a SOC 2 audit is, or the type 2 audit is 90 days. Those intervening 9 months, you have to maintain the same cadence. So building it as a practice and a daily habit versus a one-time event.
Exactly. And one more kind of question that comes to my mind is okay, AI governance. We have to. I mean, it's like the elephant in the room. Like every startup wants to sprinkle and is actually sprinkling AI into their product, but then the governance side also it feels messy. So, um, Shane, when you look at how teams are using AI today, what worries you the most from a privacy and a risk standpoint?
So it's not actually the sprinkling of AI across. AI washing is getting some attention, like
Mm.
false claims of using AI in a product that doesn't actually use AI. But I think shadow AI is really the biggest issue at this point. And that's the unsanctioned or unregulated within the company use of AI by employees to do work related tasks where they may not be aware of all of the things they need to check in the platform's terms or policies, training data. I think people in my line of work are aware of, for example, Grammarly, the
Mhm.
plugin for checking grammar. A lot of people use that in their work and have the free edition, but don't realize that if you're using the free edition, you cannot opt out of them using your inputs on your screen, your data, to train their model. And so your company information could be flowing unregulated into all of these training models for AI. And we don't understand how it may come out on the other side.
Wow, that is wild actually.
Yeah, it's a big issue at this point because I think there is a delta between what what feels reasonable to regulate with AI, what maybe the C-suite at a larger company or what feels like a monumental use of AI, like if it's going into a product, for example, is that's one thing that may get the scrutiny it needs. Hopefully it will. But,
Mhm.
you know, popping some client information into your personal chat GPT account or Gemini account to generate an email or a memo or what have you, you if they're not seeing that, if they're not regulating it, if they're not speaking to it and ensuring that it is being done in a safe, uh, compliant, you know, just careful manner, then it could have really, really negative outcomes for the company long term.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and um, so before we wrap up, it's kind of a more of a nuanced take. I want to push on something that founders would probably say off the record, like our customers do not care about privacy certifications yet. They just want features in our product or our service, maybe. So, for a startup which is still in survival mode, Shane, is it actually rational to postpone serious privacy work until there is a real enterprise demand?
I think the answer in certain areas, well, across all areas, is going to be it depends. I think it's accurate that the average consumer, individual private consumer for of a B2C product, probably doesn't care about a trust badge or a certification. I think that there is the flip side of that is once you do grow, you have that risk of not having the foundation of privacy practices, having that compliance debt, and also the algorithmic disgorgement issue that could come up if you are building a product, like a tech product, or building
Mm.
anything on data, which is most things these days. So I think with regard to pursuing a certification for, a B2C company that is in survival mode, I don't think that getting the SOC 2 Type 2 or having an ISO 42001 badge on their website is going to move the needle. However, aligning aligning the policies and procedures to those standards will be a good investment of time and resources because of, again, investors having that foundation, having it baked into how you're building. On the B2B side, I think that honestly, it is going to be an excellent investment. I think a lot of potential customers won't even speak to a company until they've gone through at least the preliminary phases to get those things in place. So it you can narrow the scope, and I think it's smart to narrow the scope to just what is practical at a certain point, and you don't have to go out and get every badge and have all the boxes ticked right away. But getting that in motion, getting the process, the audit, those basic security and procedure certifications and frameworks in place, I think
Mm.
is that it for a B2B company is always a good idea at the ground floor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it doesn't sorry, just to add, this doesn't mean having someone full-time dedicated to it. It doesn't mean sending out for a ton of, open-ended legal expenses. Most of these are not to be outsourced to a lawyer or a solicitor, so you don't even do a lot of this work. And for these companies that are in survival mode, it doesn't make sense to hire someone to do this because they don't have enough to do where it would be a full-time role. So outsourcing and making sure that it is a scaled down version of what a major multinational corporation would be investing in, that's where the difference would be for a startup versus an established company.
Mm. Yeah, I think actually a more conscious and mindful approach towards it. Like, the move is not do everything right now, but it's decide consciously what you will do, what you will defer, and what you will never ever compromise on.
And we have a framework that my co-founder actually
Mm.
created in his dissertation work. It's our proprietary way of approaching this that's principles based as opposed to going through checklists and making sure that all the boxes are ticked. And while you have to do that in an audit to a certain extent, it's about the principles that underlie all of these things, which tend to be fairly universal. And if you can start from that mindset of, you know, only collecting the data you need, only keeping it as long as you have to, like those seem like common sense type of things to do.
Mm.
So you don't have to over engineer, pun intended, towards all of those little minutia and the patchwork of laws that are out there, because honestly, they're going to change next week anyway.
Wow. Makes sense. Makes sense. Brilliant. Brilliant, Shane. Refreshingly practical. No fear mongering. No alphabet soup for the sake of it. So very, very clear message. And I really, really like, I actually, because I have, zero sense, like the technicalities are completely alien to me, but then at least I personally, I kind of have begun to understand the soul of it, the need of it. So thank you so much. And of course, if our listeners, especially all the founders or small and medium business owners who are listening to this conversation, if they would like to connect with you, extract more wisdom on this and also check out your work, what would be the best way?
I'm always available via our website. Typically, if you want to book with us, you get straight to me. So it's AETOS-data.com. So AETOS-DATA.com. Or you can reach out to me at Shayne at AETOS-data.com. It's a very easy pipeline to get through. And I'm always happy to speak with a founder or, anyone who's interested in the topic and provide a little bit more tailored, specific guidance to their situation, or, you know, uh, answer any questions they may have. I don't want it to be scary. I want it to feel achievable.
Super, super. So, listeners, what I'm going to do for all of you is have all the details in the show notes. So, connect with Shane, check out AETOS Data Consulting and her work on strategic compliance, especially if you are trying to get enterprise ready without killing your roadmap. And if you are building a startup, privacy and security are not a side quest. They are a part of how you sell, how you sleep at night, and how you stay in the game long term. So, once again, thank you so much, Shing. This was absolutely necessary and very enriching as well.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
So, listeners, start by knowing your data, decide your non negotiables, and turn your proof into something your buyers can actually see and understand. And also, if this episode gave you one concrete next step, share it with a founder friend or your product or security lead. Hit follow, leave us a review, and tell us what part of this conversation you are taking back to your team. And thank you so much for tuning. And this is your host, Sun, and this has been BizBlend. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you.